everyone, welcome to another Animation Friday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address something that I think is very significant and important to animation. I am uploading this video today since tomorrow, as well as Friday, as well as Saturday, I will not be here, so you will get all the videos all the way up to Saturday. Without further ado, let me address voiceover and its significance within animation. It's almost, I would say, critical, especially if you have dialogue within your animation, to have good voiceover. The voices have to match the character in some way, shape, or form. Now, I think there are some films that have done voiceover maybe a little bit better, or have chosen better actors over the years to do the voices. And there's often some people who are actually famous for voiceover. Jim Cummings is a big one that is famous for his voiceovers. And if you actually look at The Lion King, he actually sings part of the song, since apparently Jeremy Irons' voice couldn't take it for all that long. Ultimately, what a voice does to an animated character is it gives it weight, it gives it purpose, it gives it personality. It's really what transforms an animated character, especially when it is given a significant amount of energy and sort of a expression too, because usually when you do voiceover, you often try to kind of, if you can, maybe mimic the expressions too, or try to play out the scene as you envision it in your mind. And usually that ends up working, I think, to the animated film's advantage. Voiceover is also an expression of identity too. Like, for example, Donald Duck, he sounds like a duck. Same with Daffy Duck. There's a certain extent where I think some animated characters are given that kind of an identity surrounding them, depending on whether or not they're an animal, or depending on or not they have this kind of a personality. Like Goofy sounds goofy. Mickey, has that very heroic sort of charm voice. Voice does a lot for animation. I think more so than we realize. I mean, the animation does speak volumes through the expressions and things like that, but when there's a voice backing it up, it just brings out so much more than what you would initially expect. And I think it's really interesting how voiceover has played such a significant role within children's films, within television. It's been there, and there's a lot of people who seem to have that talent, or can seem to showcase it really well. I'm sure it's a lot of people who do like radio or who do podcasts who may not necessarily be good at acting on stage, but they still have a good voice in how they present themselves. So they may not be able to, showcase themselves in real life on stage, but if you put them backstage in the studio, they can do voices no problem. And it's just one of those talents that sometimes some people have and then some people don't. But I think it's a very interesting one, and I think within animation in particular, it has played such a huge role in sort of shaping the identity of each character that is within the film or within the television show. And I think that's really why voiceover has such an importance. Um, and again, it's not like animation can't live without voiceover, because sometimes animation's not given dialogue. But when it is given dialogue, there is so much that, you really do feel like the person behind the stage is, you know, um, trying to put on a performance, but at the same time, you're really absorbed into the character that is being animated that you almost ignore the idea. For example, Vincent Price, I think, is a perfect example of someone who did it really well within The Great Mouse Detective. Like, even though he was acting and he was putting on a show and doing a performance, ultimately you don't see that because the character just shapes his voice so well. And he works with the character and tries to blend in with that character so well just through vocals that you don't even really recognize that he is trying to, put on a show. And again, it depends too on how fast, the character is talking. If the character is talking really fast, then you obviously need a voice that sinks into the way in um, the animated character is in the way in which the animated character is talking. Now, I think voiceover has probably gotten a lot easier with computers. Uh, since computers, I think, allow you to make adjustments fairly easily, unlike 2D animation where you kind of have to go back and, you know, rechange things over and over again. Whereas with computers, you can kind of just mess around with them a lot more easily and see if maybe the way in which the person is saying the lines is maybe in fact better for the character um, or is maybe not as good for the character depending. And I think that's also something that's important to know when it comes to that. Also with musicals in particular with Disney, usually they'll have somebody else who does the singing, um, as opposed to the person who does the vocal work, like the actual dialogue of the animated character. And I find that to be interesting. Sometimes I think it works really well. Like, for example, Jeremy Irons and Jim Cummings, that I think was brilliant. I didn't recognize a difference at all. Whereas with Frozen and, with Tangled, I could kind of see a little bit of well, with Tangled, the girl who was doing, um, Mandy Moore, who was doing the voiceover, was also doing the singing. And even then, it didn't seem like the voices or her voice meshed all too well. Same, I think, with Frozen 2 with Idina Menzel. But I think it just depends on just how you kind of visualize it. For some reason, I feel like the way 2D is spoken through voiceover just seems to blend more for some reason. When it's 3D, you feel like it's very computery and that that it's the vocal or the way the character's lips are moving, it's very raspy. Uh, well, not raspy in the sense that it feels very mechanic. Because again, you're really creating like you're creating a 3D model. You're creating sort of like a a plastic thing. So it's kind of it just has this different, stranger effect to me. Than with 2D, which I feel like when you do voiceover for 2D, it just blends in more. But I think there have been some exceptions with CGI. I think the voiceover, for example, Ralph and Wreck-It Ralph for his character, I think actually worked fairly well. But just generally speaking, I think 2D animation, just the way the voices blend in with the character, I think work more than they do with 3D. Um, but regardless, I mean, it has left a huge impact, I think, over the years, and it will continue to be. And it'd be nice to see different people sort of showcasing their fun little talent with being able to just do voices. Um, and it must be an amazing talent to have. I mean, I think that's just unbelievable how you can transition your voice just to sound like somebody else. I think that's just crazy. Um, or get it to sound like the emotions that the character is going through. Yeah, I think that's just it's a brilliant piece and a brilliant part of animation, and it'll probably continue to be. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say when it comes to this particular topic. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.